today we are going to go over my first process of making a bodice. Now, I did receive a pattern from a friend and just retraced it, but I made the Boob Cup pattern all by myself, and I just wanted to show you this because we're also going to do a video on how to make a bodice from scratch and how to work on that, and I just want to show the change and the differences because this is from the first pattern of a bodice that I ever made. So this is a very important video for me, but it's more about the Boob Cup than it is the actual strips of the bodice because those are all copy and pasted from my friend. So with that being said, let's get started. So I'm going to start with the Boob Cup because I'm going to have to morph all of these things together. And I didn't really know how to do a Boob Cup, so I just decided I'm gonna cover it in tape. And then I taped it to my board because I didn't want to have to constantly move it. Yeah, so I just applied layers of tape on top of the Boob Cup. And then I cut off the excess and remove it from the Boob Cup, and now we have somewhat of a flatter piece to trace a pattern out of. And then I mark a little section so I know where the top of my Boob Cup is. Okay, so now we're actually going to start the bodice part. And to start, I actually did connect all the bodice pieces with the new Boob Cup. And thinking back, maybe I should have recorded this, but I think I was just caught up in the moment and didn't think to record this. But we'll be going back and evaluating bodices and how to actually formally make them from scratch later on. So for this, I have my big, half sheet pattern, kind of what you would want to cut on a fold, but I have to make individual panels. So we'll be tracing those individual panels that I've already sculpted together in a pattern and adding the seam allowance. I think this is the most beneficial way of doing this because I'm already seeing what the pattern pieces should be looking like together without the seam allowance. And this is something that I can use over and over again. Now, while tracing can be pretty simple and straightforward, I did it a specific way. I used my straight fashion roller, I traced the lines in Sharpie, and then I added about a little less than a half on the top inch of a seam allowance. This will give me the most room I need to make sure that I am doing this correctly. I have room for pockets for the boning. I have these pieces fitting correctly in the way that it'll be tight enough on my body, but not too tight that it looks like it's gonna pull apart. We start with the back piece, and the back piece is honestly just a rectangle because this is the part that's going to get the grommets or whatever we do to lace the bodice or corset up. Now, depending if it gets a zipper or whatever the case, things change when it comes to this piece in the side. Now, for the project I was working on, was just going to do a lace up. So it will be getting grommets and then there will be lacing happening. So I didn't really add anything onto this pattern like zipper extension or anything like that, just because I wanted to have that lace-up effect, and I didn't want my full back to be covered when completely tightened and laced up. After taking the pattern and doing some body measurements, I decided that I want this bodice a little shorter than my prototype pattern, and we're gonna cut it. So I did the exact measurements. This is gonna get attached to a skirt, and honestly, it does not need to be this long. So we're just cutting a couple inches off, straightening the line, straightening the seam allowance, and the back panel's done. The next panel we're going to trace and add our seam allowance to is the middle panel. Now, technically, there's going to be 2 middle panels, with the other panel being a middle panel too, but this is the middle of this pattern sheet, okay? I don't want it to get confusing. We're doing half of the boob cup and that center panel. To trace it, we're just going to trace the straight lines and around the boob cup area. We are not taking the boob cup with us because that is a separate pattern piece. We already have that sculpted, crafted as I've shown you. So we're going to go around the boob cup and then add our seam allowance. Now, just like last time, I am going to cut some off, but I am going to use my other piece that I already made kind of as my go-to, and we're just gonna measure it, add our new lines, and cut. Now it is time to do the inside shell piece. It's what I called it, and I called the other one the outside shell on the patterns. So I'm going to stick with that because that sounds kind of sophisticated. Now, to do the inside shell piece, it is going to be the exact same as the outside shell, except kind of flipping it. Now, boob cups are not the exact same on both sides. So we can't just flip it and, use the old pattern from the outside shell. We have to make a new one, and that is why it's important to make sure you know what you're working with. Now, to do this, we're going to do the exact same thing. Trace the lines, trace the boob cup, add our seam allowance, And then, once all of that is done and we are confident, we are going to cut it to match the length of the rest of the panels. Now, this is what all of our panels together look like. The boob cup, the back panel, the outside shell panel, the inside shell panel. I will be cutting about 6 pieces of this, usually. Now, that's depending on if I do a mesh or not. It's going to be 2 of the lining for each side, 2 of the shell for each side, and if I do add mesh, 2 of the mesh for each side. That's a lot of pieces for a bodice, but it's very well worth it. And I want to note that this bodice doesn't have any boning structure designed into the panel, and that is because I decided halfway through that this particular bodice, for this outfit, for the skirt it's getting attached to, will not have any boning, and will just actually be panels. Okay, y'all, so that is the bodice pattern. Like I said, all of those bodice pieces were crafted beforehand and not made to my fit by myself. They were made by a friend, and I copied the pattern, and I will go over in a more detailed video on how to make that. I was just not that skilled at the time being with pattern and bodice making, so I copy and pasted and made it mostly about making a boob cup pattern for the first time, because no matter what pattern you use for the bodice, depending on the boob cup you choose, you're gonna have to make those adjustments. So it's more like taking a pattern and making adjustments for my own body versus making a pattern from scratch, which was the beginning of my journey when I first started pattern crafting, which is insane to say, but we're there. And we are much further now, and I'm so proud of myself. But I can't wait to make a pattern of a bodice from scratch. Of course, it's going to be a little different than this one because I'm not going to make the same one twice. Now, maybe I'll make a video on this pattern again and show you how you would get this specific bodice with your specific measurements. But we'll probably do a different pattern for the bodice and a different boot cup just to have some variety. I don't know. We'll see. I'll see you then, though. Have an amazing day. Stay beautiful. Stay positive, and keep being your creative self. Even if you think you're not creative, just find something you like and dive into it. Say fuck it. Bye!